to the Real Recovery Show. We're here every week. We air every Friday at noon, and you can see all of our episodes on themeetingspace.com. This has been quite an amazing experience. It's crazy how much feedback we've gotten. People who are in recovery and people who are not even in recovery learning things about how to recognize if they have a problem or help somebody that they think might have a problem in their life as well. So today's topic is going to be on meeting spaces. You go to a meeting, you put $1 in a basket, you don't know where it goes. You go to a facility, you may buy a drink or a snack, and you don't know who you're supporting. And even especially during COVID, when some of the meetings were struggling, you wouldn't have known it necessarily if you were on Zoom. But there's a lot of stuff that good and bad that people have experienced around meeting facilities and on their continuance or places closing that are close to one's heart over several years, and especially during COVID. And so if you've been curious at all, stay tuned because we're going to talk about all of that. I'm going to start off and talk about how the meeting space came about. The meeting space is located at 6115 South Rainbow Boulevard. It is currently the largest meeting facility in the Southwest area. It has 115 meetings, and it has a recovery store right in the center of it. The meetings range from 12-step recovery meetings to anger management classes for men and women. And we also have workshops there for people to do the steps or for authors to come and do signings and craft fairs, etc. But how it came about is a very interesting story because I have had different dreams of doing different things in my life, but having a meeting facility was never on my radar. This was many years ago. I'm 23 years clean and sober, but I was living in another state and in Texas, and I went to a workshop, and this workshop was incredibly powerful. And I went up to the front to get a CD, which they had just started making CDs rather than tape cassettes, and to age me a little bit. And I was so sure that I would be able to just get the CD and listen to this great talk over and over again. And so I didn't even write notes. I was just so sure about that. And when I went up to the front, I was looking around and I was a little perplexed. Like, where are the CDs? Where's your table? And this person said, "Oh, we didn't record it." And I said, "Well, why not?" And it was because there were two people who were the main tapers, they were called, for all of the recovery-based programs, all the workshops and the speaker events, etc. And within a couple of years before I even saw this, they had both passed away. There was nobody recording for anything for the entire Houston, Texas area. And even parts of Louisiana and Beaumont, etc. And God, it was crazy. Now, to paint a picture, at the time, I was on disability and I was seizuring on a daily basis. I had a hard time holding down a job, and it was just incredibly stressful. I had severe PTSD, and I didn't like crowds. But here I was. And I'm not entirely sure if that day my mouth opened because of my ego or my intuition, but out came, "I'll record." And I started learning at rapid pace how to set up sound, how to record, how to pre-print CDs, and to record live, edit, and burn onto pre-printed CDs for sale for different programs. And I became known for this. I was the only taper for that whole area, which is, if you've ever been to Houston, Texas, is significant. And so what's interesting about that is, people were very, very supportive and very happy that I did that. And I didn't make money, I made sure that I was at least somehow, I don't know if I made sure, I don't know how it happened, but I somehow covered the expenses of it and people, they loved it. I was pretty good at it, if I do say so myself. And so it paid for itself. But what it did for me is it put me in environments that I would not have gone to myself. I am an isolator. In my addiction, I was an isolator, and my higher power, who I choose to call God, for sure was like, I got you. I'm going to put you in a place where you're going to have headphones on your ears, and you're going to hear a whole bunch of stuff that you wouldn't have heard because you wouldn't have gone to the retreat or the workshop or any of these events. Even for like so many different programs that had addictions and issues that I wasn't afflicted with. So I ended up creating a website called 12stepcds.com, and this idea came to me that one day I was going to open a place called Awakenings, and it was going to be a store that was going to be half for all the addiction-related recovery type stuff and half for all the extra spiritual stuff, like the tarot cards and the crystals and all the other stuff, and somehow I was going to have that one day, and I couldn't even fathom how I was going to do it. Like I said, I had seizures and I was super sick. So whatever I put energy-wise into it, and I was always so afraid of, my biggest fear when I recorded all those years was that I would have a seizure during a recording. I was so afraid because I was afraid somebody wouldn't hire me. So it was interesting, hire me, whatever. I was the only person, but whatever. In my head, I was always afraid of abandonment, my own issue. But so I ended up relocating from Houston, Texas to Las Vegas because of a guy, and I got married, and I started recording out here. And it just wasn't the same thing. I didn't feel like I was needed. There were other tapers out in Las Vegas, and I felt guided to exit stage left, basically, intuitively. And so I did. I stopped. And there was still this idea, though, like it would be great to open that kind of store. However, at the time, there was actually a store out here in Las Vegas. Some of you might know. It was called Genesis. And to me, I didn't necessarily love the area, but it had a lot of the things that I wanted to offer. So if there's not a need, there's no need. And so I didn't do it. Interestingly enough, my very first employee of the recovery store later on was somebody who used to work at Genesis, Tay-Tay. So, it's just so cute. So eventually, Genesis said they were closing, and they wanted to know if anybody wanted to buy that. And people were talking about buying it, but nobody ended up buying it. And it ended up closing, but little versions of Genesis started to appear, and one of the little versions of Genesis became the recovery store. We were located on Fort Apache in the second floor of a building, and people had to, God bless them, go up an elevator and scared where they were going and follow some really weird signs to get to this one room and come into this one room that was like packed to the max. I mean, I used IKEA stuff, like it was, I was very efficient. I would have hung stuff from the ceiling if I could have. And they came, and it was so crazy, and I knew that wasn't going to be the final location, but I was on such a need-to-know basis with God that I didn't know anything, and I didn't feel like I would be able to afford to open anything. I didn't know how this was supposed to happen, so I wished I had a bigger place because I had a lot of stuff, and one day, this girl came in to buy medallions, and she said, "Have you ever thought about opening a meeting place, or moving the store to a bigger place?" And I said, "Yeah," and I'm trying to tune into my intuition. And what I got was that I was going to have a bigger place for the recovery store, and maybe a meeting room, in the back of it or something. Like I couldn't actually get the vision because in my mind that wasn't even part of this. I couldn't fathom, like, how could I even do that? And plus there were already so many meeting places. I didn't feel like it was needed. And and in business anyway, you have to fulfill a need, otherwise what are you doing? And so then she said, and she she acted like she represented a particular Alcoholics Anonymous meeting that was currently meeting at Solutions, which was on Rainbow, further down away from the 215. And the Solutions had like tons and tons of meetings there of all kinds. And she said that if you do open a meeting space too, my meeting will join you. And I'm like, you can't speak for your meeting. And she said, no, I can. And I was like, why? And so I started to find out that there were things going on, that meetings were starting to be unhappy because stuff was happening, changes and some weirdness over at Solutions. And so, but I don't take, gossip to heart, because I want to know, only the facts, And so I just kind of listened with a grain of salt, but intuitively I was feeling like something was going to happen. And so I went into a meditation and I asked my higher power, I said, is this something that you want me to do? And I got a yes. And I said, okay, do you want me to start looking, and when, and da-da-da? And my intuition said in February, and it gave me the roundabout of when it's supposed to be. So I was like, okay, good. I have a general idea of what I'm moving towards. And then I said, well, where? And I got guided Rainbow. And it's so crazy because my head interpreted that to mean somewhere around Rainbow. Like there's no way it's going to be on Rainbow. And then I also got guided that it's going to be 2 units, and one's going to be 1,200 feet, and the other one's going to be this other 2,000, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, okay, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, I'm looking. So I start looking, and I saw one place, and then I saw what is now the Recovery Store and the Meeting Spaces space. And when I went in there, man, I gotta tell you, it was... what the Recovery Store is now used to be a posh dog groomer that I used to pass on Rainbow, and for some reason I kept staring at this place every time I would pass it. And a little kind of like, I don't know if I'd want to spend that kind of money on an animal, taking him to get perfume and like, I'm sure that's not what's happening, but like all the the dog biscuits that are made into like gourmet things and whatever. And in fact, the chandelier that when you walk into the Recovery Store, that big chandelier in this big ball chandelier in the when you first enter, that's from the dog groomer. So that's the only thing that stayed. The place was destroyed. It was gutted, and they lost everything trying to hold that place going, and it was destroyed. The toilet was held together by dog leashes. It was destroyed, and we had to gut and do so much to build it up. And the 107 was a cleaners, and so we had to decide how to do that. And so we only had the Recovery Store. There was 106, which was the back meeting room, which was a really super small meeting room. And then there was 107, which was the bigger room. And my idea was, this is as far as I could see, because I don't see like God's vision. I see Lisa's vision, and Lisa doesn't see lots of stuff. So I was like, okay, I'll find a way to have meetings started. I know that there's a need for the area anyway, and we're closer to the 215. I was like, it'll be fine, whatever. And for whatever reason, I'm guided to do this. It'll be fine. And I turned around, and I'm trying not to show. I'm trying to have a poker face because I'm in love. I feel this yes. I felt such a yes about that space. And I turned around, and a bus pulls up to the front and stops and lets people off. And I was like, there's a bus stop right in front of the meeting space? Are you kidding me? That's insane. So I ended up getting that to be the Recovery Store and the meeting space, and I was like peeing on myself excited about this. It was just so cool. And what's crazy too is that there was this little metal do you remember this? There was a little metal flower with a triangle in the middle of it, planted in the flower blade. Yeah. And it was just a metal thing on a stick. Yeah. And it was like, that's a sign. So as we're building it, I start to find out that Solutions is having way more issues than I thought they did based on what people were saying. I called a friend of mine because I've had meetings at my house. I forgot to mention that. I've had meetings at my house every year for the whole time I've lived in Las Vegas. And for different things, you know, for A Course in Miracles, for meditation, for helping people to heal, and so the idea of having like a meeting was like, you know, and needing a place, you know, other than my house was to me also a motivation. But when I went to call one of the people that had come to my meeting, my meditation meeting, because some people from 12-step recovery would go to this meeting, I knew that she worked at Solutions. And so I ended up calling her on the phone, and I said, so how's work? She goes, well, funny you should say that, because work's not that good, and this is what's going on. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, I could just tell you, because I'm probably not going to be here much longer anyway. I'm like, whoa. And so she started telling me that they were going to be closing, and that they didn't tell the meetings, and that there was a lot of like fear around telling the meetings, and afraid that people would vandalize and stuff like that. And I was just like, wow, that's crazy. But all the meetings are going to have a place to go to. And it was so crazy. I ended up going and sitting in on a variety of all these different 12-step meetings and telling them what I found out, letting them make their decision, letting them know. And so we had, I think it was 40 meetings already signed up to the meeting space before it opened. Mm-hmm. And the meeting space, I did not know how this was going to happen, because I was working against the clock trying to get this place open in time, because we knew that they were going to close in February, and we were trying to open before they closed. And we opened days before they closed. And that's insane. So it was pretty phenomenal. I was so blown away that these people were coming when there was just dust all over the floor, and trusting a stranger who showed up at their meeting and promised that they were going to be open. Mm-hmm. And I was only promising because my intuition said it was going to happen. And I promise you that was a walk of faith, because when it opened, that was just a miracle to me. And Solutions closing was nothing that I thought, on my radar. So the meeting space was open, and then the last part is rooms 103 and 104 were a hair salon, and they actually moved out shortly after we moved in. That they lost their lease, and so that place was available, and we were like, I don't think we could take on another 2 rooms. Like, this is expensive. And I was using all my own money. But I started hearing, and I don't know if I'm just so gullible and so manipulated easily, but manipulable, maybe. But they started talking about how it's possible that the person that was looking to rent had a marijuana distribution business. So I'm an addict. All you need to do is get me thinking, what if? And away I go. And something, needless to say, we got 103 and 104, and we built it out, and so what have you. So I went to, in the Strip, there's a place called Coffee Bean. On the corner, and I went into Coffee Bean. This is one of my favorite stories, and then I'll turn the mic over. I went into Coffee Bean and I said, "Can I speak to the manager?" And this girl who was maybe 18 years old, I'm not sure. She goes, "I'm the manager right now," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, sure." And I said, well, do you know about 12-step meetings and alcoholics and addicts? And she goes, and she kind of like acted like she did, but you could tell like she was already, her eyes were a little bit like kind of glazing over. And I said, well, we drink a lot of coffee. And I feel it my due diligence to give you a little heads up that you're about to have a serious uptick in your business, and you might want to prepare for that. She goes, oh, okay, no, we're fine, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, all right, that's fine, whatever. So I left and everything, and we were open for a bit, and this guy comes in, and he comes up to the front desk of the recovery store, and he goes, so I'm the manager. I was on maternity leave, and I'm the manager of the Coffee Bean, and they said you came in, and you were trying to warn us about, and what's going on? And so I told him, and he goes, yeah, definite uptick. And I said, well, you're welcome. And I just, and there was a Subway there that closed during COVID, but they also got a lot of business. And it warmed my heart that some of the businesses there loved us, not the massage place so much, but they weren't so thrilled. But we worked some stuff out, and we have a symbiotic relationship now. Yeah. So that's it. And now, time over time, Monte Vista closed right in the beginning of COVID, and for non-COVID related reasons, and during COVID, a lot of the rest of the places in all of Southwest closed, and there was nothing open.
Well, and hospitals stopped taking meetings.
The hospitals stopped taking meetings.
Churches stopped taking meetings. All
the meeting facility, everything. And then during COVID, Serenity Club also closed for financial reasons, and they really, really tried to keep that place open. It was a heartbreak. But yeah, it's so that's the rush through of how the recovery store and the meeting space all came about. And I'm really super excited today because we're joined here with two people who are from KCB Club. We have Bill, and then we also have Keeping It Real Club, where we have Sticks. And we are going to take turns, and we're going to share about how we can start off with you, Keeping It Real, how Keeping It Real came about.
Hello, Lisa. What's up? Hello, everybody. My name is Sticks, and I want to talk about the Keeping It Real Recovery Club. How did it all come about? So we're coming in on 5 years in December. I think it's like December the 3rd. And we started off on Commerce, 1309 South Commerce. Mm-hmm. This place was like a place where homeless people hung out at. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you Google the address, it'll come up meth lab.
Wow.
For real. I'm serious. And so it was this garage door we was looking at opening up this place, and when we opened it up, it was like everything that you could imagine in that place. Dirt was like 2 inches thick.
Wow.
And it was smelly, and and the group of people that was like, okay, we're going to have to invest in this and get this right. And I'm the first one who said, just so you know, we're not getting a dime of our money back in this investment. Yeah. Not one dime. Mm-hmm. And that came to be true. Yeah. Because over the course of the time that we were on Commerce, it was one big empty space. So if you ever been on, I don't know if you was over there before, but every wall in there was put in there by us. Mm. The kitchen was put in there by us. The lounge, the tables, the chairs, everything. And thank God for people that wanted to see this happen. So we got a little help here and there, and so after the pandemic, the owner thought that, okay, well, I can't keep you guys here at the same price, so they wanted to raise the rent. So we were out looking for a new location, which we now are located at 1100 East Almond Tree Lane, which is like corner of Maryland Parkway and Sahara. Mm-hmm. Place is twice as big. Kitchen is twice as big, and
you have a church.
Yeah, we have a So my spiritual advisor happens to be a pastor, and so next door to the club is a church, and we're working on some other things to have different activities that could help the community. And our whole thing, like in that location is a lot of people that need help. And, we're reminded that this is why we have this place, because, I don't know where this perception comes from. Like, people think recovery clubs is making millions of dollars and thousands of dollars, and we are keeping it a secret from people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And which is not true.
Right.
For the most part, it's a struggle
for everybody.
Yeah, like since I've been around, August 16th, 1993, I didn't see so many clubs close.
Yeah.
Right.
At least about 10 clubs that have closed and never opened back up. Now, a couple of clubs closed, but they were able to open back up, and then they closed again to never reopen.
I've seen a ton of clubs close since 2007, so...
Yeah, so you imagine how many...
in your 13 years.
15.
Oh, sorry.
Don't be short-changing.
Yeah,
her.
don't
Come on.
do that. That's not cool.
So, one of the things that I think is helping us in Keeping It Real Club is that, we have membership, we have a kitchen, we have basic stuff, and then we have really good food, and we have membership, and merchandise. We have merchandise. This hat is Keeping It Real, and we have Keeping It Real T-shirts. We have hoodies, and being a member, you get 20% off the clothing or the food or activities. Like for instance, it's this major fight coming up. I'm not going to say. I don't know if I can say it on this because we might get copyright, but we are hosting this thing with the ideal of having 3 sections of the club that's available to where if you want a private watch, just you and let's say 10 people to watch this event, you can rent that. Or if you want to just be in a general area where everybody's at, you can just do that. Or if you want just you and your friend or you and your girlfriend, just you two, we can do that too. So stuff like that helps us keep the club open. And I'll just say this with absolute confidence. Putting $1 in that basket at a recovery club covers nothing.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that's a bad, we want people to, we're self-supporting, right? We want people to do that, but I'm just like
right, it's a myth. It's for sure. We're going to get into that too, because there's so many things that people assume, and only well-meaning people, they have no idea. I had no idea before I got into this what happens to what and how the meeting stays self-supporting. And so, you, Bill, how did KCB come across?
Came about on a resentment, baby.
Hello, Bill. Hello, Bill.
Hey, hi guys. What's up? There was another meeting place that a friend of mine was going to, and there was an issue. There became an issue, and this person actually got 86th from the meeting with a restraining order.
Wow.
Oh,
So it's like, and that group was suffering because that person wasn't there, and the question was, what do we do? And so, my partners Ron and Tony at the time had gotten together with Colin, and they'd even talked to me about it earlier and said, this is what we're going to do. And I was like, I'll be there. I'll support it. Do what I can to help out, put everything together for you guys. Anyway, they got together and they said, this is what we're doing. And they purchased this room and, set it all up and said, this is for everybody who wants to bring in a meeting, they can bring in a meeting, stuff like that. So we had that there. And when it opened up, there was 2 meetings there at the KCB. You had a meeting at 5:30, and then there was a noon meeting that had become, and that was it, and so we're like, hey, look what we're doing. And next thing you know, it just started filling up and filling up, and it's great. We're a simple it's a simple club. KCB is a very simple club. We don't offer the food and everything like that.
Well, you do have the fridge with all the
we have the fridge,
drinks.
and we have the honor system for with the soda and stuff, and that actually is really pretty cool. One of the things that we do as a club, we make sure that we, provide literature for newcomers that come in, and that it's for free. There's no purchase.
Wow, that has to also come from your pocket.
Yeah, and they always have cookies. Always.
Because people bring them, right? So
and there's, and it's in a nice place. It's not too difficult to get to. It's off of Alexander and Rancho. It's right there by the VA hospital, and so, but it's, again, like Sticks was saying, people don't understand that even with COVID, when COVID came along, we had an issue, and the issue was keeping it open, and even that dollar into the basket, like you both have said, what does that cover? And it doesn't cover anything, And so, but that's how we got started. That was 12 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Been here that long.
Yeah. Wow, and you have 28 years sobriety,
28 years,
and
yes.
Sticks, you have, you have 29 years.
29 years, and coming up on 30, really quick.
No, you just took 29.
You just took 29.
You need to be 29 for a bit. I'm coming up on 24.
She'll be 24 in January.
You're
a while away.
Are you old enough to have 24? That's
listen.
what I want.
Thank you. Bill, you're my favorite right now for
I
saying
am
that.
absolutely good for 30. If somebody wanted to give me a 30-year chip tonight,
Oh, yeah?
they know I'm good for it.
Yeah?
No fronts,
Well, you
buddy.
are well into your 30th year.
I'll start
different?
designing it, and I'll have it ready in August.
Right, and I'll send you the picture.
Okay,
It's
so
a different picture than the
No
last
front
one.
sticks.
We're going to go on break, and please remember that the opinions expressed here are strictly those of the people who gave them and do not represent any 12-step program or should replace your own intuition or professional medical advice. See you in a bit. Welcome back to the Real Recovery Show. We're back from break. And remember, you can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, Amazon Fire TV. You can listen to us on PHLV Radio app, or you can get our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart Radio. And if none of that means anything to you, you can go to themeetingspace.com and click on the Real Recovery Show. All of the episodes every week are posted there. And you can look for my Facebook, and I post it there as well. Every Friday at noon is a new episode. And we have a 52-week contract for this year, so there'll be 52 episodes. It's crazy. 52 topics. So much to talk about. But anyway, so before the break, we were talking about, a dollar in a basket, and it's really interesting, because I'm not really sure specifically where the idea of $1 a meeting came from. But I do know this. It has been in action for so many years. And it started with Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, but it's all 12-step programs generally have that idea. There are some meetings that have, it's an hour-and-a-half meeting or a 2-hour meeting. There's certain Gamblers Anonymous meetings that are an hour and a half, and they ask for more from the people that come to that meeting, at least to cover what the rent would be for a meeting for an hour and a half. But in general, meetings have struggled. And then in each of the 12-step programs, they have this, the volunteer levels of what runs those individual 12-step programs. You have like the local central offices, and you have the intergroup, and then you have the highest up where they're publishing the books and the literature and managing, the meetings, coming and buying the books from them and stuff like that. And it's not organized, but it's organized, and it's full of a lot of volunteers. And if and I know that I witnessed people talking about years ago that Alcoholics Anonymous put out this promotion, basically saying, "Hey, listen, we're suffering, we're struggling to keep things running right, and we need support." And so they said a dollar doesn't go as far as it used to, and so to suggest that people who attended meetings put $2 in the basket. You just had people just talk about it for a bit, and costs have gone up. This was many years ago, by the way, and yet nothing really overall shifted over the years. And I wasn't even looking at it from a perspective of obviously having a meeting facility, because I didn't at the time. I recognize that. And what's interesting too is that you have people who come into a 12-step meeting, and when they go into a 12-step meeting, sometimes people go into a meeting and they are like, they're broke, they're struggling, they can't hold down a job, their hands are shaking,
they're homeless,
yeah. or they're just like going through a massive detox, and first things first, court ordered, they have the ankle bracelet, and they just being in the meeting, which is why most of the meeting facilities don't even ask the meetings to pay for to donate any money for the newcomer, because the newcomer.
We do that. We don't have any meeting contribution from a newcomer, even if a visitor comes from out of state too. Where we don't do that either. We don't do that.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that. That because the meeting itself is really supposed to be self-supporting enough to have a prudent reserve, to support itself, to pay the bills, to send out money to the central office and to the different branches of its particular 12-step program, and be able to cover if somebody can't put money in a basket, in theory. But if a meeting doesn't actually ask for more money and say, this is what's going on and costs have gone up, and meetings are afraid to say it, I feel, because it's a rotating position to be a secretary of a meeting,
But how many meetings actually have
a business
meeting
yeah.
and have positions? How many of those people actually know what a prudent reserve is for? How many people know where this is going? You can have a meeting that has a prudent reserve of $600. It's like, you have to ask them, did you make contributions toward it?
Yeah, are they using the pie chart? Are they doing general service stuff? Like, do they know where everything's supposed to be?
And a lot of meetings, most meetings are small, and they're not really where they have all the extra people to take all the service positions.
I understand that, and so that I get that, but there still needs to be some kind of an education that's just gone by the wayside. Yeah. People. They said, if we had a coffee pot and a resentment, we could have a meeting. I've heard that so many different times.
Which is how you guys started.
Yeah.
Basically,
yeah.
Right.
You talk about that coffee, and we talk about prices raising up. That we started getting a box of coffee 10 years ago. It was $45 for all these bags, and now it's $137 earlier, and it's insane.
It is insane.
The cost of everything has gone up, and I'm not trying to say that I want to retire from this.
Right.
I do this because,
your heart's in it.
I get goosebumps when I think about it.
Yeah.
Because we fought to stay open.
Yeah.
When COVID came along, we fought to stay open. We did everything we could. We had 10 chairs. We had it all X'd out. We took all the other chairs, chained them up so they couldn't be moved. And then we had people coming in, and the meeting would fill up. And so the chairperson of that time, all of a sudden you get other people, and who was ever the chairperson called and said, hey, can we take the other chairs off that rack and put them outside at least? And so
Right.
we had meetings, people coming in outside. People were grateful that we were open.
Yeah, we had meetings outside too.
Yeah, we did.
But the mask wearing and the entitlement and the people who were going on Zoom were saying that the people who were going to meetings were selfish, and the people who were going to meetings needed desperately because of addiction, relapsing, PTSD, homelessness,
loneliness,
domestic violence situations, living with everybody else who's using drugs, on and on and on. Why there needs to be a physical place, because and this is controversial, and it is not taking away, and I am not going to have a political conversation, okay? It's not saying anything about COVID specifically on its, danger rate and health risks and etc. But I happen to know firsthand from my own experience with my own body and mind and other people that alcoholism is deadly.
Correct.
PTSD is deadly.
Got that right.
Yeah.
And as long as somebody is living with untreated alcoholism, they are not safe.
No.
And sometimes they need God with skin on them. Sometimes they need some place to go where they could talk to people.
I was going to say the fact that we were able to get on the county commission's
Radar.
that they closed down the city, and we were on the docket of the county
We were
commissions.
closed for 2 days.
But I'm talking about before that. But when we got on the county commission's meeting that day that they were closing everything, before the recovery store and the meeting space had to close for 2 days for something completely different.
Oh, yeah.
But when we got on that meeting, and it was like an emergency meeting that no one knew about.
To mention about meetings.
To mention about meetings to become essential.
Right.
Because if we wouldn't have
right.
become essential, no one would have been able to have 10 chairs in a room.
I forgot that.
No,
we did
no,
that.
That's true, because some of what we did was predicated off what Lisa
did.
and I talked about,
I
and
had
how she went about
everybody
it,
calling
and
me.
how she fixed it. But just
it.
really quick, this whole thing about why we do this. You guys have a club, you have a club, we have a club, and there's clubs out there, and I think for myself, it's about how much I love being sober, how much I love people, how much I love doing this work. And, every month you look at your bills, you don't think about what people is doing or what they're not doing. You're thinking about, how can I keep this open?
Yeah.
So the whole thing is that, in general, people are cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just keeping it real. I mean, like,
that's
you know
what you do, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's our club, Keeping It Real Recovery Club. So what I'm saying is that when the basket comes around, so that back in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, they was putting nickels and quarters,
dimes
in the basket.
Can you imagine how heavy the baskets were?
I know, right?
It's made out of real silver too.
It's a standard. And it's been a standard for probably 40, 50 years.
I don't feel like people are cheap.
I'm just saying that.
I feel people don't know.
Look, I think people in general want to come to a club, maybe buy a water, buy a coffee, buy a bag of chips. We're talking about my budget when I walk into any club, it's $3.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But, you walk into the recovery store and your eyes light up, your heart light up, your money start to kind of way disappear out of your pocket.
That's not true. That's not.
That's true for me.
Okay.
What gets me,
then I hope you go there more.
The thing is that I understand people think that this place is going to be open no matter what.
That's
right.
And
Magically.
Putting $1 in the basket while holding a Starbucks in your hand. Can I say that?
Yes.
Okay. While holding a
or coffee bean.
Or proper sandwich.
But what do you do though?
You can't.
How do you change that?
I couldn't say anything to anybody, but in the same sense, really, honestly,
I really feel like it's ignorance. I don't really feel
how
like
much
it's
did these
cheap.
people spend on a daily nut for what they were doing?
I really don't feel like it's. While some people sure could be cheap, I feel like the majority of people don't really understand.
You're right.
Because when we're wanting to heal, if our butt's on fire or we're trying to be helpful, we're focused on that, and it's just, I don't have to think about this. Somehow it's organized, the roof's over the head, the lights are on, I put $1 in a basket and I do the rest of what I'm there to do. Yeah. And, I feel like who is going to tell them? No meetings are taking it upon themselves to educate the people that are coming in. So all the new people that come in get indoctrinated into the same grandfathered in idea.
Well, and
right?
the new people, people are like, how do I go to this class? Where do I sign up? Like, they don't even know that it's a meeting and that
classes?
It's like,
Yeah, we have people calling the Recovery Store all the time saying that they're there for a class.
You've got the AA classes there?
Yeah.
Well, look, I think that part of the problem
I think it's education.
I think part of it is education. Like, for instance, in a business meeting, when people see that prudent reserve, they think like, okay, we got this money and now we don't need to put money into nothing because
the treasurer
yeah
is basically giving the treasurer report and saying,
hold on though, and where we're at, you shouldn't allow any meeting to say what their prudent reserve is anyway.
Well, in a business meeting.
But in a business meeting, but you've had people that have said something in meetings. I've heard people say, well, I heard in this meeting that, they had so much in their prudent reserve, so KCB, we basically say, look, when you're doing your Treasury Secretary report, please do not.
Yeah, I think it's also dangerous because because meetings tend to, they'll pay the rent, they'll pay for all the supplies, and then they keep a prudent reserve. They keep money to the side that's supposed to build up to a certain amount that should cover in case they don't have enough attendance or anything happens, like COVID, in theory, that they'll be able to pay for expenses. And so what ends up happening, though, is by making that announcement in the meeting, it could also attract theft.
And we
have had theft.
We've had theft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people were putting their extra money in the lockers, and they shouldn't have done it. But meetings thought that the meeting space was totally safe, and there was an issue with my back door for the right side of the building, and it wasn't anything I thought somebody would break into, but sure enough, somebody broke into the meeting space and started tearing apart and damaging $1,000 worth of lockers, and I saw on camera it was somebody who had relapsed on drugs, and
we had the same issue. We had somebody come in through our front door. We had that glass door. They came to the door, knew exactly where the lockers were, or the cabinets that these meetings kept their stuff, and they went right for it.
Yeah.
So then we had literally had to go in and bar the stuff. I mean, I don't ever want to put bars on windows, but that's what we had to have done.
Yeah, I had to reinforce the back door, and I had to reinforce the back door, but it was such a I felt like it gave me some PTSD stuff that came up. I had to walk through some stuff around that because
it was scary.
Because you have this community. One of the things I love about we can speak to that, these meeting facilities that we have, is that there's a sense of community and joining and people wanting to hold hands and heal, and getting excited and singing happy birthday and keep coming back and, buying medallions for people and watching people when the light goes on in their eyes. And, I've had people come up to me and tell me when I was having, just a brain fatigue on the whole thing, like I work so hard and blah. And then and somebody would say, this place saved my life. And in that moment, God would remind me of what success really looks like, and just to know however long can keep these places open, because if you don't know, it is a struggle to keep these places open. And it sounds like we're just like whiny little meeting space owners.
No,
but the truth is, if you don't know how hard it is to pay rent, we ask for donations, we do fundraisers, and we're still very, very tight. Salaries.
Let's look at what's going on right now. Mm-hmm. We have the fentanyl stuff's happening. Okay, you have
Jesus.
There's addiction is through the roof.
Right.
The percentage of people that are just
especially during COVID.
The drinking, the drugging, the meth, everything is through the roof right now. And so you may all, as owners of meeting spaces, might be seeing a little dip right now. But I'm going to tell you, I think coming around around the first year, so it's important that we stick, do everything we can to stay open. And that's what's happening right now with us. Between Ron, Tony, and myself, we dipped into our reserve so much. We're one chair order away from probably not having anything.
Right.
But you know what? So, and it's like with COVID, and I'm not trying just to say this to get any sympathy or say, oh, poor Bill. It's coming out of my pocket, but there's a reason for it, and you nailed it because people have come up to me and they said, you know what? I got sober here. Yeah. This is what I know.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful part about it.
Yeah.
And I know for myself and the people that's with me, we always talk about the purpose. Mm-hmm. And the purpose is never money.
Right.
It's all about, if somebody can come and hear something and then their life change. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I was texting somebody one morning. I went way overboard and I texted 40 people. And now
that's you being overboard.
That's overboard. That's overboard for me. So the last guy I texted, which should have been the first guy because he was at a bar. Oh. And he said, if that text would have came in from anybody else, I would have went on ahead and drank.
And that's really the point. You know what I mean? So during COVID,
that's what we want to.
During COVID, we could have shut. We could have shut down during COVID. Yeah. We didn't know how long it was going to last, and we didn't have money coming in, and we still had bills we need to pay.
10 chairs, right? You had 10 chairs.
We had 10 chairs.
10 chairs.
10 chairs per room. I had somebody tell me that they thought I stayed open during COVID for the money.
Same here.
And I said, please show me the money.
Show me the money.
Because it's 10 people per room.
But not just that, but we had to close the recovery store.
We had to close the recovery store, which supports the meeting space. Mm-hmm. Right. And so literally, I blew through all of my savings to keep that open.
So I asked people, you're making money hand over fist. What do we produce? What do we manufacture and sell to bring us that cash?
Right.
We don't.
We have to pay the rent with the rent.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. But, it's like my heart is always in it. Yeah. And we need to make sure that, we're talking about the club side of this thing and supporting the meeting space. Yeah. Supporting the KCB club.
That's one of the things I love about you is that, you really have the attitude of, supporting other meeting facilities. Like when we were really struggling, you did a marathon at the meeting space and brought meetings to the meeting space to fundraise.
And that's why don't we have that? There should be more of that.
Should be more cohesive.
And by the way, I had a great time doing that too. And getting those groups together was like, hey, I need your help. Feeling. And it was like, what do you need us to do, Sticks? Yeah. You know what I mean? It was just that simple. And I'm looking to do something again real soon for all of us. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, something changed. I think that if we stay to the core of who we are, like where I live at in my heart, if we stay to the core of that, I think good things is going to happen. Yeah. I think good things going to happen for all of us.
I feel like most people, if they knew that this is what really goes on behind the scenes, I feel like most people would want to help because I feel like somehow we've been able to do this and it's been donations and people providing, and people have felt it on their heart because they see the same mission. They may have a different job that they don't directly affect people like this, but they want to support. I just got the chills. They want to support people who are doing this because we're all at the end of the day in recovery and healing. We're all in the same boat. And if we don't do what we could do to support each other in keeping the boat rowing, then the boat's going to sink. And
So-
we all went to Serenity when it closed, and it was like watching somebody die.
God,
It really was.
I couldn't make it that day.
What is the worst? What would be the worst feeling for somebody who shows up to a place that they've gone to for years and see something on the door that says, "Sorry,
We're
no longer
closed."
here."
Yeah.
Yeah.
We couldn't
and,
stay open.
And what if that day is the day that they really need a meeting?
Yeah.
And they show up
Yes.
and there's nobody
And
there.
there's nobody there.
It's locked up.
What do you do? I mean, and that's I would never want that to carry on my conscience that I couldn't keep the door open for
Yeah.
someone that desperately needed something.
Yeah.
And I, like I said, when I got involved with this, it was for the soul.
Yeah.
And it's just because I knew I wasn't going to be rich from it.
Yeah.
But man, I've seen people come and go, and people have said thank you. I've met new friends. I, have a whole circle of people that have come from there.
Yeah.
And from other places, and I'm grateful for that.
God, I have so many friends. I have so many. It's just a feeling of like, just the support of it, and so it really is either up to. So when you say that you're going to put $1 in a basket, and you say, because people have said to me, we're going to put extra in the basket for you. It's like, well, please understand that the meeting doesn't give in general. They don't. Some meetings do end up donating extra. But in general, the meeting usually only pays $1 or a little bit more per person to the meeting facility. And so sometimes if people are only putting $1 in the basket or not even, the meeting itself can't even afford rent.
That's true.
And 12-step meetings
So
for the traditions, according to the traditions, need to be self-supporting through their own contributions. And so what happens is a lot of times is that the meeting will turn to the meeting facility and say, I'm sorry, but we can't. Or people will end up putting their own money in just to be able to make rent. And and unless you're one of the small amount of people that go to the If You Have It business meeting of a 12-step meeting, you're not necessarily going to be privy to the struggle that meeting might be going through for you to go and to be fed and to help people in. And so we don't get, as a meeting facility, more than that specific amount. So for the end of this, we should talk about, what are the different ways that if you're not going to, what you can do to support meeting facilities. You can buy food, you could buy really cool garb, great hats, which I'm going to get some made for the recovery store because they're really cool, embroidered. It's really good. You can buy memberships, you could, support this meeting facility staying. We're thinking about doing a membership program as well with Bill. You can
put a little extra in the refrigerator.
In the Bill's refrigerator.
I think you should, because I think that it's a huge it's a huge way of bringing in revenue if people, like for instance, your recovery store is, like I told you this before, and I'll say it on this thing. It's like the best store I've been in.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate that. And you used to work at Genesis.
Yeah.
Imagine if I can walk in there and have 20% off anything in there.
Right.
What a huge incentive.
Yeah.
So
I just feel like at the end of the day, there has to be a way. Maybe there's a way you can Bill, you can set up some sort of like a Venmo or something, put signs on the wall with a QR code and have people donate, because people can do that.
Yeah,
but also to like spread the word and say, whenever you hear a meeting is needing support and you go to support that meeting, please understand that when meetings die, so does the facility. If the facility doesn't get enough attendance, it's going to not be able to keep going. And so we need to,
so true.
And we have so few meeting facilities left.
Yeah.
We really do. And in fact, when the quarantine lifted, some of the meetings restarted in the local hospital, and they were not getting the attendance and they couldn't keep going. And so they folded. So in the Southwest area, the meeting space is literally the only place left. And, I don't want anything to happen. And I'll say this last thing, because this is ultimately the purpose and needs to be said, is that regardless of what higher power you believe in, whether or not you're even atheist, I believe in the good. I believe in the good. And I believe that if we keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep wanting to do the next right thing, I believe that enough people together wanting to do the good makes a huge good, a huge difference. There's a movement of people re-entering society over all these years that would never have the job, the spouse, the relationship with their kids, and a life. And people are coming out of the grave, climbing out of the grave, and re-entering society and reaching their hand back down the grave to help another person. And so we all have to be in whatever position we can feel inspired intuitively to do, because regardless of whether or not you make money or you don't make money, at the end of the day, what is your own personal feel good and your own personal belief in what success looks like to you? And at the end of the day, if the meeting space closed, I will have felt like I became a success, because, and I'm crying because I know so many people, suicidal people, relapsing chronically people who are sober today, out of the grave, and helping other people. And to me, just like, that's just amazing. So higher power, God, whatever you want to call it, there is a movement. There is a beautiful movement that if you can contribute in any way, shape, or form, do it. And if you can't contribute, just your voice and your presence in helping another person goes a very, very long way as well. We all are in different parts, and we need to bloom where we're planted. And so, yeah, if you have a little more, find a way to give a little more, and let's keep this thing going. Any last comments before we close?
You know what? I say, like, each one teach one. And sometimes after the meeting, we can have that conversation.
After any meeting.
Right.
After any meeting that you're in.
Right. And be mindful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that.
Don't be afraid to give. Because you know what? The more you give, the better your life is.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, thank you.
All right.
Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bill, thank you.
Really?
And I want to say thank you to myself.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Can I just say something real quick? Because I'm the only non-owner of a meeting space on this episode. And, you know, like, I just really appreciate the hearts of people that do these kinds of things. I know we just had an episode on sober livings. And, like, I love to see, you know, people using the gifts that they were given in this way to give to others. And so, like, you guys are just amazing people, and I just wanted to say that.
Love you.
Thank you so much.
So thank you for joining us today on The Real Recovery Show. We'd like to give a special thanks to our sponsor and gracious host, PHLV Radio, here in Las Vegas. See you next week.